Coming up on 5 Minute News. Biden and Putin speak for 2 hours as tension in Ukraine mounts. Trump judge blocks vaccine mandate for federal contractors. And Germany's Angela Merkel steps down after 16 years. It's Wednesday, December 8. I'm Anthony Davis. For over 2 hours, President Joe Biden and Russia's Vladimir Putin squared off in a secure video call on Tuesday as the US president put Moscow on notice that an invasion of Ukraine would bring enormous harm to the Russian economy. The highly anticipated call between the two leaders came amid growing worries by the US and Western allies about Russia's threat to its neighbor. Putin came into the meeting seeking guarantees from Biden that the NATO military alliance will never expand to include Ukraine, which has long sought membership. The Americans and their NATO allies said in advance that Putin's request was a non-starter. There appeared to be no immediate breakthroughs to ease tension on the Ukraine question, as the US emphasized a need for diplomacy and de-escalation and issued stern threats to Russia on the consequences of an invasion. Biden said the US would also provide additional defensive material to the Ukrainians above and beyond that, which we are already providing, and we would fortify our NATO allies on the eastern flank with additional capabilities in response to such an escalation. That could include additional deployments of US troops to Eastern European NATO allies. As the US and Russian presidents conferred, Ukrainian officials grew only more anxious about the tens of thousands of Russian troops that have been deployed near their border. Just hours before the start of the video call, Ukrainian officials said Russia had further escalated the smoldering crisis by sending tanks and snipers to war-torn eastern Ukraine to provoke return fire and lay a pretext for a potential invasion. A federal judge appointed by Donald Trump on Tuesday blocked President Joe Biden's administration from enforcing a COVID-19 vaccine mandate for employees of federal contractors, the latest in a string of victories for Republican-led states pushing back against Biden's pandemic policies despite the pandemic. U.S. District Court Judge R. Stan Baker in Augusta, Georgia, issued a stay to bar enforcement of the mandate nationwide. The order came in response to a lawsuit from several contractors and 7 states: Alabama, Georgia, Idaho, Kansas, South Carolina, Utah, and West Virginia. It applies across the U.S. because one of those challenging the order is the trade group Associated Builders and Contractors, whose members do business nationwide. A White House spokeswoman said the Justice Department would continue to defend the mandate. The reason that we propose these requirements is that we know they work and that we are confident in our ability legally to make these happen across the country, White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki said at Tuesday's briefing. Preliminary evidence indicates that the Omicron variant of the coronavirus has a higher degree of transmissibility but is less severe, Dr. Anthony Fauci said on Tuesday. However, scientists say they have identified a stealth version of Omicron that cannot be distinguished from other variants using the PCR tests that public health officials deploy to gain a quick picture of its spread around the world. More data is expected next week, but Dr. Fauci said it will take a few weeks to reach any definitive conclusions. Angela Merkel has stepped down as leader of Germany after 16 years. She became Germany's first female chancellor on November 22, 2005. Over nearly 2 decades, she was credited with raising Germany's profile and influence, working to hold a fractious European Union together, managing a string of crises, and being a role model for women around the world. Now that near-record tenure has ended with her leaving office at the age of 67, to praise from abroad and enduring popularity at home. Her designated successor, Olaf Scholz, is expected to take office today. Merkel, a former scientist who grew up in communist East Germany, is bowing out about a week short of the record for longevity held by her one-time mentor Helmut Kohl, who reunited Germany during his 1982 to 1998 tenure. Merkel served alongside 4 US presidents, 4 French presidents, 5 British prime ministers, and 8 Italian premiers. Her chancellorship was marked by 4 major challenges: the global financial crisis, Europe's debt crisis, the 2015 influx of refugees to Europe, and the coronavirus pandemic. She was steadfast in pursuing multilateral solutions to the world's problems, a principle she set out at a military parade in her honor last week. The global financial crisis and the migrant influx made clear how much we depend on cooperation beyond national borders, and how indispensable international institutions and multilateral instruments are to be able to cope with the big challenges of our time, Merkel said, identifying those as climate change, digitization, and migration. You can subscribe to 5-Minute News on YouTube with your preferred podcast app. Ask your smart speaker or enable 5-Minute News as your Amazon Alexa flash briefing skill. Subscribe, rate and review online at 5minute.news. 5-Minute News is an Evergreen podcast covering politics, inequality, health and climate, delivering independent, unbiased and essential world news daily.